welcome to Stephen Green on the record. And Stephen, you've had a by-election in Cheese Country, Caerphilly, and it's come as a bit of a shock. Everybody said, oh, Nigel Farage will get in, increased his vote, but the Labour Party have been decimated and Plaid Cymru are in there. Problem with Plaid, isn't there?
Well, I mean, Plaid Cymru are quite leftish and anti-Christian. So they're pro-trans, they're pro-net zero, they're pro all the sort of silly stuff that the Welsh Labour be bringing in. I think, to be fair, I mean, reform in England, they can say, look, we're not the Tories, we're not Labour, we're the alternative. But they can't get away with that in either Wales or Scotland, because in Scotland you have the SNP, and in Wales you have Plaid Cymru, which markets itself as an alternative to Labour and the Conservatives. So there's another alternative, and so I think Reform did really well to increase their share of the vote from 2% to 36%, and as you say, Labour fell from whatever it was, 40 something percent down to 11%. And Plaid Cymru just inched up and leapfrogged, is it, or leapfrogged into first place and taken the seat. Personally, I think that Reform should be marketing themselves in Wales as the anti-establishment party, the anti-establishment alternative, and painting Plaid Cymru as the establishment, which they are. But what do I know about it?
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be interesting next May when they have the elections there. And it has been pointed out already that if Labour carry on suffering like they're doing at the moment, our friend Prime Minister Sir Keir will have to go. Now, whether that would be good or bad is another matter, but he will have to go.
Yeah, the Labour Party today is nothing like the Labour Party of Keir Hardie and Nye Bevan. It's not like that anymore. It's not Marxism has supplanted Methodism as its underlying philosophy.
Plaid, is it something very simple that really they're there? Maybe not as much as the Scots in previous years, but Plaid want their own kingdom. They want home rule, don't they?
Well, yeah, that is an aspiration here. That's an aspiration. But I mean, there are things in Wales which are slightly annoying, like the road signs have to be presented in Welsh and English, but depending on which part of Wales you're in, so either the Welsh is at the top or the English is at the top. So if you put, I mean, look, put the Welsh at the top all the time, and then everybody knows you're looking for the English, it's the one underneath. So you have Caerdydd at the top, or Abertawe, and then you have Cardiff or Swansea underneath. You see, so you could. I mean, and the other irritating thing that is that you'll get places like Resolven, which in Welsh is spelt with an F. Resol. It looks like Resolven, but there's an F on its own is a V, so that's Resolven. But in English is spelt with it as a V. I mean, there is absolutely no need to have the two versions up there. Just put the Welsh one. I have to say, I mean, everybody's spelled that's Resolven. So there is idiocy going on. Of course, every document here in Wales has to be put in Welsh and in English, irrespective of the fact that every Welsh speaker in Wales can speak English. Some of them they can even think in English. Others, like we have neighbours here, who will have to translate into English as they go along. And I'm already adopting their Carmarthenshire accent, where you put an extra A on the ends of the words. So do a lot of Nigerian pastors, if you notice. There's a lot of them, order, and they put the extra A's on the ends of words. So they're not Nigerian pastors from Carmarthenshire, but apart from that, everybody here could speak English. So we shouldn't be slaves to having to make everything Welsh and English all the time. Just put it in Welsh or put it in English. Don't let's get hung up about it. And I think that's probably the mistake that Plaid Cymru could, you will be making.
We share your frustrations being from North Wales. And by the time you've driven on the A55 at goodly speeds, you've passed one of the signs and they're all in Welsh. And by the time you get around to the English, you've had the crash that they're warning you about. It is a nonsense, and especially in business, which you are, and we are. You've got another layer of bureaucracy. They can't even cope in Britain generally with bureaucracy. The civil servants have not got the best reputation, as you know. But in Wales, there's even less of them per capita. Maybe that's a good thing. But you can't get anything done. The forms have to be in Welsh. You have to get a Welsh speaker to translate, which costs local businesses, especially in hospitality, a fortune. And that's the last industry you want to hit at the moment. But they don't care. They've tunnel vision. They want their independence. And it will be economically an absolute disaster. But there's a lot going on. And let's see what the next big vote brings before we get any deeper. I tell you where we're going to get deeper from. And that is two matters. The rape gang saga goes on, Stephen. And really, you've got to be a bit mad about what is going on. It's a cover-up par excellence. Kicking into the long grass doesn't even get close to what's happening there. And I've got to ask you why, but I'll give you two hints, if I may. One is clearly to maintain a vote that will affect Labour even more than anything else in certain regions. They're trying to do a cover-up. Let's be straight out with the word. And the other is the cost. That's what they're fearing. One only has to look at the dreadful saga with the post offices to see how much that has and will cost. And again, long grass. Here, they're frightened to death. They are determined not to be on their watch. They'll have to kick it into the grass for 4 years to get away with it. And they're doing everything they can. Shame on you.
Well, yes, a couple of things there, Rodney. But the first is that whenever you see that statement from any kind of big company, when they say public safety is our priority, if you substitute for that, fear of being sued is our priority, then you get to the truth. So that any airline, public authority, local council, public safety is our first priority. Put fear of being sued instead of public safety, and you get to the truth. That's number one. Number two, though, for Labour, I think yes, they are concerned about their demographic, using vote to these pro-Gaza absolute fanatics as opposed to just fanatics. They are, the pro-Hamas fanatics. People like Ayub Khan, MP, the one who's orchestrated the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans at Aston Villa in Birmingham. People like that. They are definitely worried about their votes going to the pro-Hamas absolute fanatics. But there's another thing. It could be even bigger, which was articulated by Sir Keir Starmer when he visited the Peacehaven Mosque the other day. If you recall, just after the atrocity up in Manchester, where two people died outside the synagogue in Heaton Park on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, there was a bit of a sort of a firebomb or something sort of let off outside a mosque in Peacehaven down in the south of England. So Keir Starmer probably had to go along there and show a bit of solidarity. And somebody asked him, about a Conservative MP who has just said that multiculturalism is dead, which I think most of us looking around can can see on spiked online. Patrick West is saying, we're now living in a society that you have enclaves here and enclaves there, and that area around Aston Villa in Birmingham is now 70% Muslim. That's why the police weren't worried about the safety of Jewish fans, because the entire demographic of Birmingham has changed. So Sakir was asked about whether multiculturalism was dead. Oh no, so no, multiculturalism isn't there. Multiculturalism is still very important to us, and that multiculturalism is one of their sacred cows. And we have again to recognise that multiculturalism was brought in order to sideline the Christian heritage and the Christian constitution of the United Kingdom. And so that is why they cannot give up their multiculturalism. They're wedded to it, and that's a bigger thing to them. The ideology, in other words, is as big to them as the demographics and voting intentions.
It's getting serious, and certain people are actually saying in certain areas, because being no doubt as an aggressive religion, Islam wants to overtake the whole country. But more seriously at the present time, never mind the future, they've done it already in certain zones. And you've got to be very careful what you do, what you wear, especially if he's Jewish. And it's working for them. They're bright people.
Well, I mean, all people are bright people. But the demographics. Some people have been talking about demographics in Birmingham, which are a huge contrast, by the way, to demographics in Caerphilly. In some of the northern areas of Caerphilly, up in the valleys, like places like Nelson, Bagoed, Hengoed, these kind of places. If you're at a polling station there, what the voters going, you will not see a non-white face. Everybody is white, except for perhaps for the local Hindu doctrinist or who might turn up. That is it. Now, most of the people who do these surveys cannot distinguish between an Indian and a Pakistani, so they're all sort of brownish-looking people. But go to Leicester, and I tell you, people know the difference there, all right. And if India and Pakistan are having some dispute over Kashmir or something, you can expect trouble in Leicester between the Hindu youths and the Muslim youths. Now, up in Birmingham, they're saying that in the 1950s it was 99 point something% white. That's what they're saying. And today it's just under 50% white. It's 47% already white. But this colour dichotomy is actually masking the real one. The real problem there is the religious dichotomy. It doesn't matter if you have a whole load of people from the Caribbean and Africa in Birmingham. They will be classed as non-white, but they are still Christian. Then you have the Hindus who are no trouble to anybody, just happy to come here and make money, have their festivals in their temples, and the Sikhs who are again hardworking people, no trouble to anybody. The real problem is the Muslims, because their religion it is in competition, in competition with Christianity for world domination. That is how they see it. Make no mistake about that. You there in southern Spain, you'll be very well aware of the propensity of Muslims to go out conquering, particularly conquering Christian lands or conquering pagan lands, increasing their influence and their rule over the world. And that is the problem. So we need to see the figures for that, not just the racial composition around that, but the religious composition. That is the big one, because as soon as you import Islam, I'm sorry, but that means Muslims. As soon as you have Muslims coming into the country, that means you are going to have anti-Semitism, because murderous anti-Semitism is written into their religion. And I know that liberals won't like that. They won't like me saying that, but it's there, both in the Quran and in the Hadith, the stories of what Muhammad said and did. Uh, the murder of Jews is commanded in the Hadith, and Jews and Christians, for that matter, are spoken of as little better than swine and in the Quran, swine and apes in the Quran. So it's that's written into their religion. Import Muslims, and that is what you are going to have in your society.
Let's use the S word. Sectarianism. That's what it's about. It's just like Northern Ireland was and still is, but not to the same extent. And if you get sectarianism, how do you move people? You can't. They're stuck in what they're brainwashed from day one when they're brought up as little children.
The sectarianism in Northern Ireland is right. It's a good Belfast is a great place to visit, if and to see the murals on on the ends of terraces of the ends of terrace houses. That's that's something else. And of course in Belfast you have the peace line. Well, the peace line is a great big wall separating the Protestants and the Catholics. But by the grace of God, we don't have the violence and the trouble in Northern Ireland that we used to have. Even though to this day, policemen just have to be a bit careful that they don't drive home by the same route every night. So there are still things that that people have to be aware of in Northern Ireland, but in England, in a lot of our cities, there has grown up just a Muslim ghetto, for want of a better word. There are around was it Hounsfield in Birmingham, where Robert Jenrick went, and he said he couldn't see a white face, and it was lambasted him. But that's the truth, and that's the area around Aston Villa, and. I mean, there are the Caribbeans and the Africans who, as I say, are Christian, and and they are they are part of the solution. But it's the Muslims who are the problem. And I mean, you'll get a Bangladeshi woman somewhere in Birmingham. She she doesn't speak English. It's not that English is a second language. She does not speak English. And I told you before that my wife Judy is from Kenya, and she became a British citizen a month or two ago. She went through a ceremony in the registry office in Carmarthen, and out of the 10 people who become British citizens, 2 of them, Muslim men, could not speak English, and they had to articulate an oath to the king. They did it syllable by syllable. I mean, if people wanting to be British citizens can't even speak the language. What does that say about us? What are we all about? It's embarrassing, let alone anything else. And anything else can include the dangerous as well.
Right, before we go, Stephen, we've got to go back to this committee, let's call it. Goodness knows what it really is, deciding what's going to happen regarding the rape gangs. And the chair, 2 of them, has decided we're not going to be head of this. There could be consequences. 5 rape victims, more importantly, have walked out because they were planted questions. No, you can only ask these questions. Wow. And they've been blocked. This is an agenda. That is terrible. Are we living in a democratic country anymore?
Well, I mean, to be as fair as I possibly can, this is what happens in every government inquiry. Do not. The first rule of government is do not start an inquiry unless you know what the outcome is going to be. So inquiries always go like this, and this one, of course, is so incendiary that all of that has was literally blown up in vain. We put an article up on our website, ukcb.org, if anybody is interested, about the grooming gang scandal. Written only a couple of days ago, we said that four of the grooming gang victims have walked away, and now, as you say, there's another one. They're making five, and the two people who the government suggested as to chair it, one I think was a social worker, the other one was a policeman. They said, well, hang on a minute. The establishment is marking its own homework, and obviously because of not just their voting demographic, but the multiculturalism sacred cow, the government didn't want to hold it anyway, and they still don't want to. And they don't, but they don't want it to be a proper judge-led inquiry, where the where both sides, as it were, are able to ask questions. So the girls, the girls, the ladies, women now, who were raped and want to ask, significant questions. One of them said, "I want to ask questions about the religious makeup of these gangs." Oh, no, you can't do that. That will, that will. No, we don't want the inquiry to do that. Well, hang on a minute. That's the question she has on her mind. That's the question that needs to be asked, and it really is the question that needs to be asked. So, because as you know, again, the rape of non-Muslim girls who could be regarded as slaves or captives is written into the Quran in the five. Those whom your right hands possess, notorious verses. I mean, that's in the Quran. So they want to get to the bottom of it because Labour do not want, well, the establishment do not want that articulated. And so that is why the inquiry is in such a mess, because there's an irresistible force of the victims of this coming up against the immovable object of multiculturalism. And and it's difficult to see which is going to make way until there is a change in the complexion of those who are in office.
Lastly, Stephen, and fundamentally, have we brought this on ourselves as a nation, the mess we're in?
Rodney, I mean, I go back to the 1960s on where the rot set in, and with the so-called permissive society, things which were not permitted in the laws of God, in the scriptures, became permitted in certain circumstances. I'm talking about abortion and sexual offences. So that is where the rot started. And now, of course, you have the establishment not just condoning those activities, but promoting them as well. So you cannot now be parliamentary candidate for the mainstream parties unless you are pro-homosexual. Pro-trans was coming. Same thing happened in the Labour Party about being pro-trans, being pro-Muslim in there. The Conservatives perhaps not so much. Liberal Democrats, obviously. But the thing is that we are ripe for judgment. Our sins of promoting the things that God hates, or the elite promoting them, is just the same now, which is pretty much the same as it was in Sodom and Gomorrah. I see the rot actually as having started in the 1960s, when certain permissive legislation was passed to permit things that God actually hates, things like abortion, things like certain unnatural practices. But now the establishment have taken to promoting these things. So we have become, in that sense, like Sodom and Gomorrah, where all the men of the city came around. So you now cannot become a candidate for the Conservative Party unless you are pro-gay. You can't become a candidate for the Labour Party, it appears, unless you're pro-trans, or that might be in retreat back to pro-gay. They passed the buffer zones, so they're promoting abortion as well. When you start promoting those things, then you are like Sodom and Gomorrah. Now then, so really, but it's the elite that impose these things. Abortion was never in any party manifesto. Legalizing sodomy, not in any party manifesto. Multiculturalism and encouraging Muslim immigration, was not in any party manifesto. Neither was net zero. These things have just been imposed on the population by the elite. Sex education, never in any party manifesto, imposed by the elite. So we have become ripe for judgment. And of course, the lessons from history, from anthropology, are that every society that allows its family base to crumble goes for, free love, as it were, as you might say, or sexual license, and it survives just one generation before it is taken over by a stronger force. That's happened all through history. The anthropologist J.D. Unwin found that published his results in a book called Sex and Society in the 1930s. And nothing has changed. Nothing makes me think that we are going to be any smarter than the people of Assyria or Babylon or Greece, or these societies that became strong because they had a vibrant culture and they were monogamous. And then because they were strong, became wealthy, affluent, fat, and lazy, and they allowed it all to crumble. And then they were overtaken by the next stronger one. Now, can you think of a demographic of a people, of an ideology, of a religion today, which is assertive to the point of aggressiveness and prepared to take over the United Kingdom? Because I can, and unless our elite, our establishment, proclaim the law and confess the Lord Jesus Christ, our Christian heritage and our Christian constitution, and say, no, this is a Christian country. We are not going to have Islam. We're not actually anymore going to have secularism and multiculturalism. Unless that happens, they are finished, and the nation is headed for civil war. And that sounds pretty dramatic, but I'm not the first. That I'm not even an academic. David Bent, professor of warfare in I think it's King's College London, certainly a college in the University of London, has said exactly the same thing. That because the elite have become so out of touch with ordinary people, that it's going to come up to a point where the people are going to rise up. He's not even looking at the possibility of Islam coming in, but that could easily be part of the mix. In the end, for me, there's only a short window of opportunity for our elite to repent and return to the Lord Jesus, because we don't want a religion in the country. Can't we just be religiously neutral? Sorry, guys, but secularism is a religion. It's a worship of man and his alleged reason. So it is a pagan religion. That's number one. Secondly, if you think secularism can defeat Islam, if you think secularism has the spiritual muscle to defeat Islam, you are deluding yourself. And as I'm afraid there are a lot of fellow travellers of Islam in amongst the secularists left, as we've seen on the streets of London, secularism will not cut it. It's Christianity or Islam, the United Kingdom. And that's the decision that our elites have to make. And maybe at the ballot box, maybe the British people, if they are presented with such a choice, can make the choice. But I look for a political party that is prepared to actually present that choice to the British people. I'm not seeing one at the moment, and that concerns me. So there's a lot to pray for, and I think people ought to be Christian people ought to be thinking about joining a political party that most closely coincides with their point of view, and being a point of active witness within it, just in trying to impress upon the leaders that this is urgent, the time is now.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Plenty to think about there, and indeed pray about. And I do believe, as you do, that it's not going to go on forever. We've got to take action, peaceful action, but we've got to take action. Let's hope our church leaders will be listening to this, because they can do a lot of good. At the moment, I believe the reverse is true, sadly.
Every blessing.